Hi guys, this is Natela, your business guru at law. As you may or may not yet know, my mission is to help small business owners and entrepreneurs make their businesses as successful as possible and avoid many, many legal mistakes. Today we have a guest on my podcast. His name is Arman Matevosyan, and he is likely one of the best, if not the best, attorney that I have ever met. We have been working together for going on 2 years now, and I think that he is a fantastic human being first and foremost. I think that that's a quality that people actually never look for in a lawyer, which I think is so bizarre. Lawyers tend to have a bad reputation, and very unfortunately. But I think that that's because people, they may be looking at the wrong stuff. And so I thought that it might be an interesting topic for you and I to digest today and to talk about, well, what should someone look for in an attorney? Someone that's going to hold their hand through a business dispute or when starting a business. I don't know. Well, what do you think?
Well, first, thank you very much, Natela. That means a lot coming from you. But I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of that aspect of it. I think a lot of people sort of forget that the law is about people at the end of the day. And when friends, family, people ask me about what should I look for in a lawyer, right? I think the things that sort of pop up into people's minds first and foremost is, what school they go to, so on and so forth. And all that's great, all that. But the number one thing, if I had to sort of break it down amongst even 5 things, the number one thing is you have to feel that your lawyer understands you, empathizes with you, and really understands what it is that you're going through, because litigation is a very difficult process. It's very stressful, it's very costly, and a lot of times, like you're mentioning, it could have been avoided.
Right.
So I think the first thing is an attorney needs to have empathy, needs to understand what it is that person is going through. The second thing, and I think you might laugh when I say this because I actually learned, I think, everything I know about this from you. Highly organized. A good attorney has to be highly organized because there are so many moving parts that they have to keep track of. So many deadlines, so many points of law, so many bits of evidence, and organization is definitely one of the top 2 things that.
But how does a client coming into for a first consult to meet the attorney? And I don't know the answer to this, but you might, because you have answers to a lot of things that sometimes I don't. How does one ascertain whether this attorney that they're meeting for the first time is going to be organized? Sure. Right? Some things that come to my mind, perhaps, are, how prepared is this attorney for the meeting? Have they done any homework? Have they learned anything about your, for example, when clients meet with us for the first time, we always make sure to go and, even if we only have their business name, we'll go and do your good old Google search, and we'll go on their website and we'll try to figure out, what is their business about? What do they do? So, I don't know. I don't know if that tends to point towards organization, maybe more preparedness. What do you think?
Sure. I think that's one of the steps for sure. But I think at the most basic level, when a client calls a law office, does somebody answer the phone?
Well, one would hope, right?
But how many times do people call, and I've experienced this even when we call, let's say, an opposing attorney.
Right.
You call and it's some dial-up number.
And sometimes we think they're dead.
Right, and you got to play Simon Says to just get to a human being that says, "Hi, Shenon Law Group."
Right, that is true.
You? So at the most basic level, if I'm a client, I want to know that, okay, if I call this person, there's a human being on the other end who answers the phone. And then everything sort of comes from that, right? Because then if the attorney makes himself available within a reasonable short amount of time, doesn't keep rescheduling, right? And you start to slowly feel, okay, who is this person, right? Are they available? Do they value my time? Do they make themselves available? And then now you get to that part that you're referring to, which is, okay, now you're in there and you're meeting with the attorney. Did they bother to take a look at the information that if I'm a client, I spend time saying, hey, here's the case that I'm working on. Did they even bother to look at the case? Right. And then it just sort of keeps trickling down there. And I think to myself, you're the most organized attorney I've ever met. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm a client, I come into your office is highly organized.
Right.
Right? It's highly organized. It would make me as a client feel very comfortable because it's like, okay, this person's got everything in order. And then, you put a touch of color, artwork that then communicates to this client, okay, this person's a human being. This person has interests.
Right. Well, I think another really important thing is like the personality has to jive.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Because, people don't think this, but they should. You come to a lawyer and you sort of, your fate is in their hands. And so this attorney potentially is going to make decisions on your behalf. Are they going to make the decisions that you would have made had you had the same, expertise and knowledge and so on and so forth? And I think that a lot of clients, they don't bother to pay attention to the personality. I think personality is very important.
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head. As attorneys, our jobs oftentimes mean that we're essentially acting on behalf of the client. That doesn't always mean that we do what the client may think is in their best interest, because sometimes they don't understand it.
Right.
And sometimes, you and I have been in those situations where a client is acting, let's say, on emotion, acting in an irrational way, and it doesn't mean that, just because they're in our shoes, we should just go ahead and do the irrational.
Well, I mean, most of the time we talk them off the ledge, but I'm just saying that, we have all sorts of clients. As you know, we have clients that are super heavily involved in their matters, and they read every piece of paper and they discuss it with them, and they even enjoy strategizing with us, and we're always open to that. But then we have these other clients that come and they say, we trust you, we don't want to know anything, just do what's best for us. Right? So when you get that type of a client, I think that for the client's benefit, the client needs to really be comfortable with the personality, first and foremost, of the lawyer, outside of their years of experience and what school they went to and how many wins they had, and so on and so forth. And I think it's an undervalued sort of quality, I think, that maybe many clients don't look for in lawyers.
Sure. Yeah, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I think you'll sort of see kind of, I always have this saying that, the client picks a lawyer that's basically them, right? And I think that goes to what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think it's very tremendously important. You gotta have the person has to get you.
Right.
The lawyer has to get you.
Right.
Not judge, not tell you the 15 things that coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Right.
Take your case, accept for what it is, not judge you. Think about, okay, what do I do to solve this particular problem?
Right. And is this lawyer taking into consideration, non-legal askects?
Right.
For example, the other day I had a client come in and sit across from me, and he said to me, I want to sue my daughter. She's, we had a business together. She stole $2 million from me. And I didn't jump at the chance of a new litigation client. I didn't say, yes, here you go, here's the retainer, sign, let's go sue her. I said to him, have you talked about this with your wife? Have you talked about this to your other daughter? No, true story. Right. Honestly, this happened yesterday. Okay? I said, I'm not going to let you do that. You're going to ruin your family. $2 million is a lot of money, but there are a lot of other things that you have to consider. I said, you know what? Let me call and talk to her. Let me have a conversation with her. Maybe I can help you guys mend things. You have grandkids. How is this going to affect you being able to spend time with them? And I understand the situation that you're in, and I understand that it might not even be about the money. Maybe you're hurting that your own child could do this to you. I get it. And maybe you're looking for vindication. Maybe you're trying to make things right for yourself. But it's not just you in this when it comes to family. So I think that another important quality to look for is your lawyer considering factors outside of this narrow, small situation that you came to them for.
Right, absolutely. And I think very few lawyers, number one, even value that, and number two, can even do that. And I think that's part of what's great about the experience that you've had, right? Since you have extensive knowledge of both litigation and transactions, right away you're already thinking about something that's beyond just courtroom.
Right.
Maybe it's a phone call.
Right. Like, how many times do we get clients that come and they want to sue vendors, or they want to sue their own customer, right? And so the first question we ask after we've gathered all the information and figure out if they have a case or not, I always ask, do you plan on ever working with this vendor again?
Right.
Is this a big vendor? Could they potentially ruin your relationship with other vendors if other vendors find out that you're suing your vendor? Same thing with the customers. Is this customer going to go and put you on blast on social media? How's this going to affect your reputation? Is this important to you? So it's this very holistic approach that I think is also very important.
Very. And I guess so to kind of piggyback off of that, the next quality that springs to my mind, a good lawyer needs to be able to learn things that they don't already know. They have to be able to adapt. They have to be flexible.
Well, first they have to acknowledge that they don't know something.
Oh, yeah, touche. They have to know what they don't know, right?
Right,
and
exactly.
then, hopefully, then they could learn what they don't know. But in all seriousness, no, that's incredibly important, right? And the law is always changing. And if you have a lawyer that is not able to change, to learn, that person is not going to be able to have a successful case.
Right.
Because they're too stagnant. They're too rigid in their ways. And that is actually one of the things that when you and I started working together, now going on 2 years, that clicked instantly was, okay, we're experienced enough, and certainly you have more experience than I do, but where we know what we're doing,
right?
But we also have enough in us to continue to learn and not
Right.
just be set in our ways and just do the same thing over and over.
Right. Yeah, sometimes situations call for very creative solutions, which brings me to my next point of creativity.
Yeah.
We're not artists, unfortunately. We don't paint, we don't sculpt, we don't do anything super cool like that. But a lawyer does need to be creative because, we have clients all the time that come to us and they say to us, this is our problem, this is the situation that we're in, we've hit a dead end. And I say to them, there's no such thing as a dead end. Even if it's a bad outcome, then we have to be creative enough to mitigate
Right.
the bad outcome and make this outcome as favorable to you as possible, right? And it's a lot of it, when it comes down to negotiating, sometimes you get parties and they're at an impasse. They can't figure it out. This person wants $500,000 and for their business, and the other person is only willing to pay them $250,000, right? So I say, but it doesn't have to be like that. Okay, well let's look at other things. Do you have something else of value that you can give to this person that maybe isn't money, right? Can you maybe allow them to continue somehow participating in the business that you're buying from them so that they can get some sort of a percentage from profits over the course of the next, year or several years? That's going to maybe potentially even be more than $500,000 at the end, but it will entice them to make a deal with you in this way. So I think creativity is another really big one.
Right, and I guess now that springboards to the next thing, right? Sort of tenacity, not stopping at the surface, willing to keep digging, willing to keep going, no matter whatever roadblocks come in the way.
Right.
So I guess tenacity is the best way to describe it, kind of a never give up attitude.
Right.
And yeah, it's not to say that, if a particular strategy is implemented or a client wants a particular result, that doesn't mean you just keep running and then when you hit a wall, you keep hitting the same wall. No, it doesn't mean that. Well, because a lot of times I think people confuse those.
You got to
two.
find the alley.
Right, exactly. Maybe there's
Right.
an alley. Maybe instead of running, maybe you could jump over it.
Right.
Or whatever that
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is also one of the most important qualities for an attorney. They can't give up. You have to keep going. You get the evidence, you keep digging. You get the bank statements, you take the depositions,
Right.
so on and so forth. And I think the last one that I could think of, and this one I think is, I guess, boring, but it's also very true. Experience. They have to have the experience that they've seen enough of it to know what to expect from a judge,
Right.
from the opposing side,
Right.
from a juror,
Right.
right? And those all come back to the human element of this, which is sort of what I started with. These are human beings. Judges are human beings sitting up there. They have their bench a little bit higher, so they're above you, so you kind of feel that authority. But at the end, it's a human being.
Right.
They have their own prejudices. They have their own beliefs. They have their own thoughts. And an experienced lawyer will have interacted with enough judges and jurors and opposing counsel and will be able to understand what it is that will persuade this particular judge.
Right.
Some judges are, you're dealing with one particular issue, there's 4 arguments you can make. And there are a lot of judges that I could think of off the top of my head. I'm thinking, okay, if I make that argument with this judge, he or she is not going to be persuaded. Right. And that's where the experience comes in.
Right, and that's why we always tell our junior associates when they give us a motion, and these motions sometimes can be very dry and boring. We always say to them, don't just recite the facts, tell a story. You're telling a story because there's a human that's reading it and they have emotion, and if we can play on their emotion to the advantage of our client, then why not?
I guess a different way of saying the same thing is like, the judge is reading the same thing 50 times.
Right. You gotta do something to capture their interest.
Yeah. The judge is on lunch. He's like having coffee. He's wishing he was doing something else, and he reads that one brief that says, "Oh, there's something else in here.
Right.
This is different. This is new. It's a story."
Yeah, and I think to elaborate on that also, how a client can sort of ascertain if it's an experienced attorney, whether transactional or litigation. At the initial meeting, does this attorney give the client a strategy? It might be a raw strategy because not all the facts are being taken into consideration because it's only the initial meeting. But does a lawyer, given everything that the lawyer knows, does the lawyer give the client a strategy, or does a lawyer say, "Oh, I don't know, you might win, you might lose, I have to think on it.
Let me get back to you.
Let me get back to you." That is probably, that probably does not indicate a lot of experience. That's why I always, to the extent that I can, and I can 99% of the time, whether it's on a brief 15-minute phone consult that I do or in person, I always give the client a strategy. There's always a strategy. It changes. Sometimes the strategy is fluid. Sometimes new facts come to light. Sometimes the other side does something that causes you to change your strategy. But right off the bat, I know what the initial strategy should be. And I think that's I think it's a big indicator of experience.
Sure. And you said 99% of the time you do it. I think you do it a little bit higher. It's 99.9%.
So this is it. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Make sure you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you sign up to our YouTube channel. We are hoping to be back to you with more great stuff. It was a lot of information, but if you are looking for a lawyer or will be looking for a lawyer in the future, make sure that you consider all these things. If I can sum them up from memory, I would look for comparable personality, creativity, organization, tenacity, and experience. And thank you, Arm, for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Natela. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you guys next time.